Hoo boy, my second video in and I'm already coming in with a negative opinion. After having everything that happened in Season 2 completely purged from my memory, I went ahead and rewatched this season to make this video. And well, let's just say my fading impressions of this season were not that far off from how I feel now. In short, Season 2 of Danmachi really disappointed me. While I'll say it again and again that Season 1 wasn't perfect, like I said in my previous video, which would be very nice of you to go watch after this one, the good far outweighed the bad for me. And if nothing else, it just felt good to watch. The pacing felt just right. But in Season 2, it's like they just threw that away for the most part. At some point, the storytelling just became a slog, with boring expositions and Deus Ex Machinas going on way too frequently. But before I go into detail, note that I am going to mention important plot points in this video, so it would be best if you already know what happens in this season. But if you just want to use this video to judge whether you want to get into this anime/series, that's fine too. Just like how I love Season 1 but won't call it perfect, as much as this season disappointed me, I won't say it's completely bad either. There were some good parts, mainly being the wargame arc, where it's kinda flawed, but still pretty enjoyable in a vacuum. It introduced to us the politics between familias, and what troubles that can cause for people, as well as a pretty nice episode with Lily as the spotlight, where we see more of her origins and see her resolve even after drinking the divine wine said to intoxicate anyone that even takes a sip of it. In addition to callbacks to her insecurities mentioned back in Season 1, it was a nice way to really flesh her character out. As a whole, the wargame arc also felt like things were constantly moving forward, if not just a little rushed by the end. What else was nice in the wargame arc? Well, there's this one thing. Yeah? What was it? Oh god damn it! But that's really all I can say I enjoyed about this season. As you could maybe already tell, a big part of what I have problems with lies in the Ishtar arc. There were problems that appeared in the anime as a whole, but I found them to be the most egregious in the Ishtar arc. Let's start with the comparatively least offensive thing, the increase in boring expositions. Emphasis on boring, since Season 1 definitely uses exposition too. A good comparison would be the exposition on Lily's and Haruhime's story. In Season 1, we were introduced to Lily in Episode 4, and we spent a good amount of time with her through Episodes 4 and 5, seeing her trick Belle with her cute demeanor, seeing her get abused by other adventurers, and seeing her warm up to Belle bit by bit. Only after that does the anime give us her backstory through exposition, and explain why she hates adventurers that much. But for Haruhime, all we get is that night Belle spends with her, where they talked about hero stories, and the short scene where Haruhime pretends to not recognize Mikoto. Then, Mikoto just dumps her and Haruhime's backstory onto us. Just by exposure alone, it is much easier for us to care about Lily's character than Haruhime. This makes the exposition way easier to stomach, and for us to get into, since we actually want to know what her deal is. With Haruhime, I just simply didn't care that much, and kinda spaced out. Simply put, if the audience doesn't care, it's very likely the exposition would come across as boring. But since whether you care or not can be quite subjective, this definitely wasn't the biggest problem. What is a big problem, however, is how much Deus Ex Machina and simply dumb plot points this season uses to push the plot forward. I don't think I quite need to explain why the main character is starting the entire arc by simply running away from people and just happening to hide into the room of a key character is kinda dumb. So I'll just let him list out some of the stupid crap that happens in this season similar to that. Not only does Belle just run into Haruhime by pure chance, but of course Haruhime is also the only person that knows about the secret room Belle gets locked up in. Then of course Mikoto just stumbles into a room with the papers for the Killing Stone ritual. And of course Take is the only one that knows about the Killing Stone ritual to let Hestia and the others also know about the ritual. Then guess what? Right as the characters learn about the ritual, just as Belle is kidnapped, that night is exactly when the ritual needs to take place. Which is extra stupid, because why would Ishtar expend her forces to catch Belle so damn close to the ritual? The ritual is clearly very important for her, so why can't she just wait until the ritual is over to get Belle? It would actually be easier that way, since every single member of the Familia would be level boosted at that point. But no, let's just add in a bunch of variables into the mix right before the big day and frick everything up for yourself. Back to you. Thanks, man. I think you could imagine how many times I rolled my eyes while watching this season. It's just such a step down from season 1, where everything for the most part just happened either naturally or because Freya was playing the strings. The only obvious Deus Ex Machina in season 1 was Belle getting the grimoire from the tavern that someone just randomly left behind. And I feel like the story could have easily gone in a similar direction with Belle not having gained that magic spell, as opposed to Deus Ex Machina in this season, where the plot literally could not play out as it did if not for them. Another thing that was a step down from season 1 was the pacing. If you watched my video on season 1, you would know that I praised season 1 for making things feel like they were always moving. But here, they just dropped the ball, at least after the wargame arc was over. In season 1, not one episode was pure filler. Even if there were slow moments, it's either right before or right after something that pushes the plot forward. Or it is something that fleshes out a character to integrate them into the story. Nothing quite felt pointless. But in season 2, they just decided to have an episode where everyone is basically chilling, and Hestia trying but failing to recruit any members. Nothing of note happened in this episode, and we quite literally could have done without it. It's nice to see all the Hestia Familia members getting along, but we don't need a whole episode for that. If I wanted to watch Slice of Life, I'll go watch Eurocamp or something, not Danmachi. But even the necessary parts felt like a step down. Remember how I said for season 1 that if there were setups that were needed, they would sprinkle it between other important plot points that were still happening at that moment? Yeah, that's not the case here. In both the Wargame and Ishtar arcs, they both had episodes where it was pure setup and the main characters do nothing especially significant. In the former, Belle got in a bar fight and went to a banquet, and in the latter, Belle just went around asking for info on Haruhime, and we got a flashback of Mikoto's life with Haruhime. It's definitely more of a subjective thing whether people like this or not, but I have to say I prefer the constant momentum they had in season 1. And don't even start with the last 2 episodes of the season. Not only did they not contribute to the plot, they straight up left the damn city the story is based on. I did not have any recollection this little detour even happened before rewatching this season. Whole thing felt like it should have been an OVA. What a climactic ending to the season, right? If you had 2 whole episodes for Hestia to throw a tantrum and to go on a vacation to a village, why not just spare 1 episode to add more detail to the wargame, which did feel a little rushed. Feels like they did this whole song and dance just to shoehorn in some screen time for Hestia and Eyes. And speaking of Eyes, she has to do with the thing I have the biggest problem with in this season. If you compare her screen time in both this season and the last, you may notice that her screen time is drastically reduced. And by screen time, I don't even just mean her being active on screen. We don't even see her getting mentioned. Belle, whose uniqueness from every other adventurer hinges solely on his feeling to Eyes, barely spent any time even thinking about her. By far the biggest problem I have here is how season 2 just starts taking away what made Belle felt engaging to watch back in season 1. The signs start showing a little in the wargame arc, but like everything else, things really start falling apart after that and in the Ishtar arc. In the wargame arc, we can see them still trying to hold on to themes from season 1. We had this nice pep talk from Hestia to Belle to tell him to get stronger, which is a big part of what he's about. We had Belle going to Eyes for training to remind us of their gap in strength and what Belle's ambition is. And again, we had this episode about Lily that uses some of the themes mentioned back from when her backstory was revealed in season 1. But like I said, there are cracks here that started to form. Remember how the badass fight with the Minotaur was Belle's huge hurdle that he had to cross in order to go from level 1 to level 2? Keep in mind, season 1 told us that just grinding EXP isn't enough to level up. You have to actually beat a powerful opponent to cross the threshold. So, when Belle absolutely demolished the enemy base and was only stopped because a wild Cassandra tackled him, when all Belle suffered was a sliced up arm and an explosion, when it took only to knock out someone a whole level above him. It's safe to say that I did a double take when they just casually mentioned that Bell is level 3 now. I mean, technically he did beat a powerful opponent, thus the lore is consistent here, but it just feels off. Normally, if you're reaching higher states of power for a character, the stakes, or at least effort it requires, should get higher as well. But here, we have this climactic and tough fight that took everything from Bell to win, for him to get from level 1 to 2. But for the jump from level 2 to 3, it was all according to Keikaku for Bell and his team only until the very end. And even so, it was just a tiny little hiccup Bell had to get over. It just takes a lot away from the significance of a level up, and it suddenly doesn't feel like this world-shaking event that would have the guild put up posters about and have everyone talking about it. But that, in the grand scheme of things, is just a small gripe when compared to what they make Bell do after that and in the Ishtar arc. Remember how I said Ice's screen time was drastically reduced? Yeah, she's just practically not mentioned after the Wargame arc, and only comes back in the last 2 episodes. Almost like they suddenly remembered her again, and hastily put together some scenes for her to be on screen. And for the duration she was gone, it's like she never even existed. Starting small, we see Bell, who gets flustered at almost all intimate interactions with women, and someone that should only have eyes for eyes. Eyes for eyes. Fantasizing about getting cute maids to serve him. Weird, right? But that's a typical joke rom-coms love to go for, that usually have no significance on the plot, so I was willing to overlook it. What's egregious is when Bell gets to know Haruhime, and suddenly decides that he wants to sacrifice everything he and his family has to save her. The motivation we are given here is that Bell wishes to be a hero that won't abandon someone in need. To be fair, that is one of the main themes of Bell's character. The longing to be like the hero in the storybooks he used to read. But what's not okay is how they throw away literally everything else. For someone he only had 2 conversations with, Bell was ready to jeopardize his and all his family members' lives to save her. His loyalty to his goddess, and most importantly his ambition to reach Eyes, the motivation that started his whole journey, were not just tossed aside, but completely forgotten. Suddenly, he's just a typical anime protagonist that saved the girl from danger, and nothing prior mattered. And having done that, they had the audacity to bring up Bell's unique skill, which Bell got specifically because of Eyes, as a freaking crutch for Bell to escape from Ishtar. That's just not cool, man. And remember, Bell wasn't this goody two-shoes paragon of justice that's willing to sacrifice everything for others. Back in the Minotaur fight in Season 1, and yes, you will see me reference that fight over and over again in these videos cause I just love it that much, Bell tossed aside Lily to fight when he could have escaped with her to ensure her safety, because he wanted to overcome this wall in order to reach Eyes. He might have won the fight and Lily was still safe in the end, but ultimately, he did choose the comparatively less selfless option of the 2. And there, I praised Bell for having depth and someone that showed ambition for his goals. But here, Bell just says,
"Screw Eyes, am I right? I'm gonna be a hero and save Haruhime. And if that means we would have to flee Aurario to escape from Ishtar, let's freaking go."
I'm not saying Bell's character was as deep and complex as Eren Yeager or anything, but this just reduced him to a one-dimensional protagonist, and all I can really say is,
I can't believe you've done this.
There were other little gripes here and there that I had, like how the OP turned from this beautiful melody that just oozes the feelings of adventuring and going into the unknown, to a rather generic J-pop song that isn't bad, but just doesn't quite hit the same. But those are pretty subjective, so I won't get into them too deep here. What did you think about this season? Do you agree with me? Or did you think it wasn't as bad as I thought it was? Or was there something you noticed that I didn't mention? Please do let me know in the comment section. Again, like if you liked, dislike if you disliked, and subscribe to see more of my content. With that, I'll see you in the next video. Bye!
クヤスのザ・ハンドが消す